Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Millville work session for April 16th, 2019 at approximately 5:30 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Santiago.
Here.
Commissioner Pepitone.
Here.
Vice Mayor Parent. Here. Commissioner Udalvis. Here. Commissioner Cooper.
Here. We all stand, salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, was advertised, posted, and made available to the public as required by statute. The municipal clerk is directed to include a statement in the minutes of this meeting. Madam Clerk, are review changes to the agenda?
There are no review changes, Mayor.
So we'll go right into presentations. We have a couple of them today. We have three, and we're going to start with Tuckahoe Farms presentation.
You like this up here or anywhere in particular? Right here is good?
That's fine, yeah.
That's fine.
Sorry for the laptop, but we
Sure.
have a couple
Okay.
presentations coming, so.
Well, thank you and good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Nicholas Aselta, former Assemblyman, Senator, BPU Commissioner, and President of Aqua, New Jersey. I'm here today representing and helping Tuckahoe Turf Farms present a presentation to you that eventually Atlantic City Electric will decide who is the winner in a bid process. Just to give you a little history, the Millville Holly Farm deal. I don't know if any of you, I know some of you have been around way back. This all began way back in the mid-2000s.
Could I stop you for a
Sure.
second? Why are you pointing at Jim?
Well,
You're
I
looking
think
right
Jim
at Jim.
might have been
That's
on.
not fair. I was
think
around
Jim
too.
was still was a commissioner at the time. So back in 2007, as you know, that piece of property, which is owned by Atlantic City Electric, went up for sale. Tremendous amount of controversy surrounding it with the environmental community, the business community. Many of us came here at this very spot and testified in favor of a particular project that eventually, in 2010, got passed by the, first of all, was sold by Atlantic City Electric to a developer and passed by the Board of Public Utilities, in which I sat on that board. Since then, the developer foreclosed on the property, never completed the contract that was made with ACE, so it took this long for ACE then now to put this back up for sale, this piece of property. Well over 1,200 acres. There's been stories in many publications around the state. It was a bad deal, developer using that environmentally sensitive property. What we come to you tonight with is a proposal that will keep this agriculturally driven, create jobs, and create a tax revenue for this great community of Millville. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan Carter, who's going to give you a little presentation, and then the owner after that, the owners, George and Janice Betts, would like to finish up after that. Thank you. Alan?
Are we being recorded?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'll hold off my end.
You're also
Thank you,
televised.
sir.
You're also televised. Yeah, you're live on TV.
Live on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Now we have the #1 press here also covering a lot.
Okay, so as mentioned, my name's Alan Carter, and I've been with Tuckahoe Turf Farms for 32 years, and I've started out painting buildings, mowing lots and lots of grass, and selling sod. And now I'm currently their business administrator, and I work with George's sons and cousins at the farm. And I'm going to also tell you that I'm the New Jersey Farm Bureau First Vice President. Been doing that for 6 years, and a director on the New Jersey Farm Bureau for almost 15 years. So I'm, although I don't own the farm, I really do value agriculture within the state of New Jersey, and I really advocate not only on where I work, but I advocate for all farmers around the state. And you know, I represent the state on the national level also. So that's a little bit about me. In your packets, on the right-hand side, we have a pamphlet of the history of our farm. And I say ours because mostly everybody that works at the farm considers themselves part of the family. The Betts family are very good to us. Some of our youngest employees have only been there 3 or 4 years, but we have employees that have been there for 40 years. And they continue to enjoy working at the farm. We started out, Walter Betts' father came down to Estill Manor area in the early 30s and started lima bean farming and selling their beans to Seabrook Brothers years ago. And then in the about late 60s, 1967, right around there, a customer came to him and asked him to think about growing grass for a golf course, of which he said, grass, well, we'll give it a try. And within a year, they realized that, hey, grass is a little bit easier to sell to landscapers and homeowners than it is to sell lima beans to one customer. So they transferred the farm in Estill Manor to all sod, late 60s. And then as the next generation, George and Thomas, came along, there was a transformation to Hamilton, which had a little bit more sandy loam soils, a little bit more centrally located in the state, easier access to state highways to get up to the developing areas of Toms River, New York, Philadelphia, and so forth. And it started out with about 100 acres there in the late 70s, and then now has progressed to about 800 acres of production turf grass in the Hamilton. And it actually covers Hamilton, Winslow, and Waterford towns, and Atlantic and Camden counties. So with that, over the years, we've modernized our fleet from standard straight flatbed trucks to tractor trailers, and now we have covers on them so our sod is kept out of the weather, out of the sun, out of the rain and so forth. It arrives at these stadiums. We now do a lot of the Major League Baseball teams, football teams, the Eagles, the Phillies, Green Bay Packers, Fenway Park, Steelers, Pirates. We go all over the Northeast. We have about 6 NFL teams that either have our grass at their stadium or at their practice facility, and we have about 5 Major League Baseball teams. We have a slew of minor league ballparks like Trenton Thunder, Altoona Curve, all these little minor league ballparks that are coming up. And we have a lot of soccer stadiums, the Philadelphia Union, the New York Red Bulls, the New York, there's another sports team inside of New York City that we do, and the Chicago Fire. So our biggest factor that's growing for us is our sports turf. Building still hasn't come back and rebounded as much as what we did back in 12 years ago when the building was going crazy. So we've really concentrated on our turf. And in the development, we developed a game day sod, which is basically sod that we can install today and they can play on it tonight or tomorrow. As quickly as they can put the lines on it, they can start playing football on it. So when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, we actually replaced the Eagles stadium. They had both of their playoff games at the Eagles stadium. So we replaced the hash mark for the first game, and we replaced the entire field for the second game. And we did that within, it was like 2 weeks. We can actually go in and replace an entire field in about 2.5 to 3 days, and they can play on it. Yes,
Do they
sir.
often replace fields like that?
Well, the Eagles and the Steelers and some of the other teams utilize the field for more than just football. The Eagles and Steelers do also their university teams there, and they also do monster trucks, dirt bike racing, all kinds of stuff that destroys the grass. And we have to get in there and replace it. So with the ease of our system of the game day side, the groundskeepers and the coaches are more willing to replace turf as soon as it's worn. They'd rather have the perfect turf for their multi-million-dollar players to play on than worry about having it tore up and not look that great on television or risk the injury of a player. So whenever there's an opportunity they want to replace it, we're there and we can get it done right away, and they can play on it the next day. So game day side. So with that creates more demand, and now, even though that was mostly for football, soccer's starting to grow into it. In some of the colleges now, it's kind of an upper scale product of ours. Some of the colleges are asking for that material, and it's growing. We took a large hit when the economy went down, and back then we didn't have as many stadiums. So we used to do approximately 28 million square feet a year in sod production. And when the economy took a dive, we went to 9 million in just under 8 months. And we were really pulling our hair out to figure out how we can stay in business, keep 30, at the time, about 36 employees, and the acreage that we had in production. So we concentrated more on this game day sod, developed it more, brought the NFL guys to the farm, learned how they took care of their product at the stadium, duplicated that at their farm, and that's how we did that. But what has helped us grow our sports turf is that when the economy took a bad turn, a fellow came in and asked us if we would be interested in hosting soccer events. And I'm sure you've probably all seen our in the newspaper our issues with having soccer on our sod farm and dealing with the pine lands and back and forth. So over the course of a couple of years, we started having soccer events, and our sales started to uptick. So we started doing a little bit of market research, and we found out that the high school in Vermont is calling us because the administrator or the principal or whoever it was, their child played soccer at our field. So we said, this is ag marketing for us. You know, we don't grow corn, we don't do corn mazes, we don't do pumpkin picking or strawberry picking. This is great. So when we were going through the issues with the Pinelands, we tried to convince them that, you know, we got these letters stating that they've come to our farm, they've walked it, kids played on it, and this is why they're buying their product over there. This is our marketing opportunity. This is how we can grow our business again. And they didn't want to go for it. So we worked with legislators and got rules passed that allow us now to do these soccer events in Hamilton. Again, we're growing now. We're back up. We're not cutting quite as much sod, but the demand is back up. And we're projecting that the World Cup is coming to the United States. All these new soccer teams that used to share stadiums, like with the Yankees, they're going to be required to have their own stadiums within the next 2 to 3 years. And there's a lot of them that share stadiums. There's going to be demand for more sports turf. So with that, George happened to come by one day and he saw Millville's holly farms up for sale. And they reached out to the realtor, they did some soil samples and found out, hey, this is almost the exact same soil that's in Hamilton. We can grow grass here. Let's see what we can do. So what we're proposing is, if you look to the large photo here, this is approximately 1,400 acres. This is Route 49. Everybody knows Route 49. The Millville Holly Farm entrance, the architect across the street, and then the gas, I believe it's gas turbine thing. Atlantic Electric has this property for sale, and what we're proposing is that we would utilize approximately half of the property for sod production. It would take us probably maybe 3, 4 years before we actually have the whole thing in that area developed for sod production. But our goal is to have pivot machines, which are irrigation machines, with about 100 to 120 acres under each pivot, and do 1 or 2 of those a year to fill up this area that we plan on farming. There's also the conference center back there that I believe George will talk about a little later. But you see all this natural area will be left, and from Route 49 you'll never know the sod farm's back there except for some new signage on the actual entrance to the place. So all the woodlands will remain in place. We feel that we could utilize this best, one, because it's already agricultural zone. Why take this out of agricultural production? I'm an advocate, like I said before, I'm an advocate for ag in New Jersey. We're looking at put this back into ag production. We're not looking to build houses or golf courses or anything else. We want to put this back in ag. So, it's a win for us. It's a win for the town. It's a win for everybody. We'll keep that also in the tax rate too. Tax property. We also feel that, I know there's another company that's looking at purchasing the area, not company, but the state. And when we look at a map that was made in 2011, and we look at all the land that's around that property that has already been preserved for open space, for green acres, for public access, It's a lot of territory. I don't have my glasses on. See exactly where I'm at here. Okay. So, I'm sorry it's so small, but this is the area that the Millville Holly Farm is in, this white spot right here. But the orange, the green, the dark green, all these have already been preserved. Do we really need more preserved land to sit there and just not really be utilized? It's already ag zone, let's keep it in ag. There's wells on the facility. We've already talked to Rutgers University about getting allocation permits, which they don't seem to have an issue with, that we can go to DEP.
What is that body of water?
So the way I haven't been on the property myself, but from what I understand, these were old mining areas.
Yes.
When the glass
Yes.
plants back in the day.
Okay.
So these parcels are watered from that area. It's, we could probably irrigate from there, but it would require filtration systems and all that, because we don't want any sand in there. Without a pull from the ground. But, yeah, so we talked with Rutgers. We've talked with, Rutgers is on board. They've come up with water formulas for us. They haven't had an issue with DEP denying any agricultural use for water. There's a lot of water in this area, so there shouldn't be an issue. So, hey, you can't use it because there's not enough water around. Explain that. We have reached out to Senator Andrews Act, who wrote us a nice letter of endorsement that's in your folder, along with the Assemblyman, both Assemblymen on the Democrat side. We have reached out to the BPU, which felt favorable when we met with them, and they were in agreement with what we're looking at. And we've reached out to some other legislators. Can we mention them? Sure. So we have verbal commitments of some Sweeney and Van Drew that are both been talking about this project that are very excited about it. I think I hit on mine.
I think you basically hit everything, Alan. Before we move to the owners, questions for this portion?
This, real quick, is what the farm in Hamilton looks like. It's slightly different now. We're getting more and more to make it circles. We like to drive circles like the NASCAR guys, instead of doing linears, a little less headache. But this farm will all have circle pivots, and turn them all GPS guided controlled. This is, and we just purchased this farm next to us. Again, product development. We also have a Bermuda grass, so I'm kind of excited because we don't get much development in the turf world, this farm is in the turf. But with the game day side, we also now have a Bermuda grass that is a full season color, which is very unusual. So this has been created from the University of Oklahoma. And this turf is going to revolutionize the whole area, because I don't know if anybody knows about Bermuda. Bermuda is a tough grass. It recovers fast. It likes to be real short. Balls roll on it to play soccer. And it's a big thing. So we bought the neighboring farm to do that, because it's slightly away from ours, won't contaminate. But there's big potential here to do the same as the other guys here. There's a lot of great opportunities.
Any other questions for Alan here at this point?
So what's going to be the difference between this location and or Hamilton? What would be the major differences?
It'll be managed the same, side farm to side farm. We plan on having, this is probably going to be devoted mostly to sports. And maybe take a little bit of that pressure off of the Hamilton, give it back to regular bluegrasses and festivals for contractors. We plan on hopefully working with the soccer group, bring some soccer people to this area. Just on average, we had a soccer tournament last weekend. And I was talking to the promoter, and he's telling us that they normally drop about $3 million in the economy each weekend in that soccer. So they have 25 to 32 fields that are set up. Hundreds and hundreds of people. And it's all outside money to come in and build the restaurants, the hotels, the mom and pop stores, the skating rings, and paintball and go-kart. Anything that they can do in between this 4 hours. So we're hoping to do some modeling here too.
Any other questions?
Wait, are you saying along with it you're going to develop like a soccer complex? Is that what I'm
Not a soccer complex. We we would like to see some marketing opportunities done through soccer here at school.
And they'd actually be able to play at the farm.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with what we do at the farm at Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm really not. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. So you see here, if you can't, you see green and the brown? Okay, so the brown is what we harvest. The green is probably, in this area, it would probably be about 3 to 4 months away from harvest. So a soccer tournament, say this weekend, the cars would come in and park in the harvested area. Play on the green area. The next time they come, the green area probably been harvested.
Rotate it back more.
They'd be playing in the next, right, it rotates around. So,
Wow.
and it really helps us with research and development, because we can start narrowing down what species of grasses respond quickest with recoveries, stress. It actually hardens the grass up and we tear it up a little bit. And even the NFL guys like to find out when the tournaments are going on, because they want to come 2 weeks later to see how it's coming,
Right.
how it's coming back. So research and development, soccer has done wonders for us. And we hope
Nice.
to be able to use that. We want to work with a group at the Millville University, where they're building up there, to try to work some opportunities out and bring the president.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Al. As you can see, I'm going to introduce the owner of Tuckahoe Turf Farm, George Betts. George, could you come forward, please? As you see, this is ratables. George will talk about jobs, and most importantly, they're corporate-friendly people. These are Upper Township residents, been here forever. They're just not going to put something out
Thank you.
there and lock a gate and drive off. You got corporate.
Thank you so much.
You got a corporate company here that's going to be a partner with your community in whatever you need to do in the future. Alan didn't mention about the jobs, but I'm sure George will. George Betts.
How you doing, everybody? My name is George Betts. I'm the owner of Tuckahoe Turf Farms, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. I served for quite a few years on Upper Township as a councilman there and deputy mayor. So I can relate to your position sitting behind the desk there. And I've also served on the county MUA for, I don't know, 30 some years. So I've been involved with all the things, but I'm really excited about the Holly Farm because I went by there. It was just a couple days after the sign was put up, and I went by there and I walked in there and I tested the soil, and I go, oh my goodness, this is just what I was looking for, right? And it's hard to come by because what we do when we do all the stadiums, we started off in the golf course business way back, and so basically when we were building golf courses, we made the sand underneath the greens, and then with drainage underneath it, and then we took that same concept and moved it into stadiums. And to do it, you have to match it up with sandy soil that they had there. And the Holly Farm was made for the sand at the Holly Farm was there so that Wheaton's Glass that's how they made their glass bottles and everything that was done. And they did scar it pretty bad in a lot of spots where they dug the mines, but there's plenty of areas that we can to work around that. But so what this is a perfect match to do the athletic fields that we do. And one of the big things that we do that Alan didn't mention was we do the conversion. So what we call the conversion is most of this, like say the Giants or the Foxborough, the Patriots, or Detroit, some of the fields that have artificial grass. Artificial grass is our number one enemy. We're all about natural turf. But some fields, just like we're at Giants Stadium, where the the Giants and the Jets both play in the same stadium, it's just too much for natural grass to have that there. So, but when soccer tournaments come there, and they come there maybe 2 or 3 times a summer, so what we do is go in, put down plastic over top of the artificial grass. We sod it with what we call thick cut. It's like 1 inch thick sod, and then we water it with fire hoses. They play 2 or 3 soccer games on it. We take it out. Maybe we might sell it to a local high school or somebody around. But if not, we'll just bring it back to the farm. And we might do Giant Stadium 2 or 3 times this summer. We might do Foxborough Stadium a couple, 3 times this summer. So they're artificial fields that you're doing. Then we also go in, all over into urban areas and do we promote natural grass. So basically that's what we're doing. So everything and it's tough because they're artificial is easy because there's not that many farmers left. You have to be a good farmer to grow grass. So basically what we do is we just grow it for them, take it to them, they wear it out, and we take it out and put it in new stuff for them.
And
Yes.
you could reuse the grass that you take out?
Yeah, we can.
Amazes me. I didn't realize.
Well, we rolled up. What the sod that we're doing is the game day sod that we're growing now for the stadium use is it's top dressed way after it's planted. It's top dressed with sand, so we'll probably mine it's top dressed with sand on top of it, so it actually builds up its turf layer, and then when it's actually cut, it's cut in rolls maybe 30 feet long, 4 foot wide, and each roll would weigh over 1,000 pounds. They're laid down and then all over top of each other, then saw cut across, and then the scraps are taken away, and then pushed together with a hydraulic thing. So then, right off, you can get the 300-pound NFL lineman can play on it the same day we put it down. Yeah. So So we got a pretty good thing going, and we could actually Millville. Millville's a really good spot for it, and we have good access there. And what we'd like to do is, harvest most of our athletic turf there. And so the soccer portion of it. First, I think I should take you through our points why we think that we are the top option for this property. Number one is, and I didn't think that I see you had solar on the presentation tonight. I never thought the solar would be. I always thought the DEP was our main competitor for the property, and I know that the BPU they don't like to use farmland for solar, and I think it would be, to me, it would be a really shame to put solar there. But we always felt that DEP was our number one competitor to buy the property. We put numerous bids on the property. We've raised the price 2 or 3 times. We've heard nothing from Atlantic City Electric at all. And we'd really like your support to help us bring this farm to Millville. So number one, we would keep the property would remain on the city's tax rolls. If DEP took it, it would just be run down. The convention center we're going to renovate the convention center, and we're going to be using it. It would be used like as a museum for the thing, but also be open for the public. We were planning if you see in the center of the picture here, this whole area where it says this parkland area, 100 acres, this is where the convention center is. I don't know if any of you have ever been in there to the convention center. You have? Yes. It's a really nice place.
It is beautiful.
And so this whole area in here would be parkland. So, and that would be open to the public, so you could use it. And we would also have, inside this area in here, we would have areas for, same as we do in Hampton, we do for the football teams and soccer teams. We have practice fields.
The buffer area basically just stays natural?
Yeah, and this configuration might change somewhat depending on how we hit the gravel pits. But basically, one thing that will stay consistent is the front area would be buffered, and it might swing a little bit different than this exactly, but the acreages will stay the same or less.
How many acres are you leaving fallow, for a better term?
Fallow means farming.
No, I mean just like not touching or letting.
Oh, about over half the property.
Oh.
Yeah. So we really didn't need the whole thing, but so it would. Yeah, I think, and the other thing is when we're competing against DEP, I mean, basically, why would DEP spend all that state money? We're going to keep it as open space.
Sure.
And the only thing we'd be building there would be a shop. We'd have to have a shop coming in, but basically, it's going to be open space. So, and then once you get into the soccer thing, if you turn to that. To the picture, if you see a picture in your folder there, pull that out, and you'll take a look. That's a look at our farm. You can see that's a pivot with the thing, and you can see where the cars are parked. That's a typical soccer tournament at our farm. So we have them there maybe 12, 15 times a year, If you guys wanted to do more than that, we could do more than that. If you wanted to do less than that, we could do less than that. The traffic impact with both is the biggest issue usually, because they'd be basically coming in 55, so it's only like 3 miles to come in, and we would do the thing. You notice that we do with the same arrangement that we do in Hamilton, is that we hire off-duty policemen from your city, and then we would pay them on their own, and they usually work five policemen on 10-hour days to do during the tournaments.
Wow.
Then you can see down, we did this research at our Hamilton farm. Basically, each tournament weekend, it's a 2-day tournament, generates about $10 million statewide with hotel rooms. The people come from all over. I don't know if any of you have ever been to our farm for a tournament. You have?
Yep.
Okay.
Big.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's crazy.
Yeah. A lot of people.
Crazy good or crazy bad?
Crazy good.
Oh, okay,
Oh, yeah,
good.
crazy good, George.
Yeah. I mean, it's very well controlled.
Yeah, it is.
If we knew what we were doing ahead of time to set it up, we could do even better. And a lot of the way with the parks and pavilions that'll be used there for the weekends, and we definitely are cognizant of the raceway guys. And on the weekends that they had, we wouldn't schedule anything. You know, we would definitely want to not do
Work with
do that.
everybody.
What's that?
I said you want to work with everybody, basically.
Well, it's not. I mean, the trouble is, we need the thing of it is they need a lot of motel rooms, they need
Yeah.
restaurants, they need stuff. So if you were already busy that time, I mean, yeah,
I have a place in Wildwood, and they have beach blasts down there a couple of times a year, and it fills the city up. I mean, there's no hotels available.
Yeah, if you basically look at the map here, where we got the thing here, so we would probably have 2 entrances. Use the entrance that comes in now, and then we'd have another entrance come around the convention center, and then we'd parking. But they would have, you know, the bottleneck will be from 55 to where the entrance comes in, but it's pretty much out of town for you. And then when people that want to, you know, some of them have tournaments that stay the second day. Some of them would be going back and forth to Rowan University, where we'll be doing stuff up there. But you know, it's
And again, access to 55 is right there.
it's close. So
It's farther down, yeah.
yeah, a lot of them would come into town. I mean, the normally your shops and restaurants in town, in Hamilton, you know, it's $3 million per weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, and from out of most of the people are coming from North Jersey. They come from Delaware. Some of on the motel rooms, when we do even the ones in Hamilton, we're using all the Marlton hotel rooms because of so many.
Sure.
Part of the promoter does the hotel rooms too, so you know, so they would be. This one here, they were looking at keeping people in Wilmington, Delaware.
George, the only problem, it's not a problem, but it's the traffic coming in and out of there on a weekend in the summer months.
Yeah.
I mean, the traffic on 49 coming from the shore or going to the shore is crazier than crazy.
Yeah, that'll be
You know,
the one thing that we do on Saturday.
Yeah.
The tournaments that go on Saturday morning, they're real early in the morning on Saturday morning, and then it kind of scatters out through the day. So yeah, that's definitely an issue.
But that happens in a lot of these big tournaments. You keep trying to get in and out of the parks.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a bunch of soccer
But
kids.
basically, we are the tournaments. What we use the tournaments for, when we at our farm in Hampton, it's just to the point now where we're selling so much sod that we really need the place bad. We're like out of yeah. There's big arguments going on all the time between the soccer people, so we're canceling tournaments just because we don't want them to play on the sod because the sod's already sold.
Yeah.
And so it's sold this summer, so we definitely could use it. Our plans also is it's going to be a cash deal, and we want to close this summer. We want to have fields ready by next summer. So, but we haven't heard nothing at all from Lang City Electric at all. And what we really need is we'd like to have you as partners to have us at least to the point where we could, that you would, if you really want us, if you don't want to spend that is not that's going to work. It's not going to work at all. But if you think about it, if you guys would, if you want to do it, we would love to try to tell the electric company, you know, that I definitely don't, I would hate to see it go into the Green Acres program, just because there's so much Green Acres space already, you know, and it's such good soil, and we're basically going to keep it open. So,
Mr. Betts, I want to hear about employees. I know Mr. Aselta said that you would give us a little bit about employees. So what are you looking to
So we
do
have, like,
at your start?
a lot of the employees that are, we have around 35 or 40 employees at Hamilton. We do a lot of outside. We contract that. We have maybe 6 or 7 tractor trailers, but we contract out most of our hauling, our long hauling that goes out of state or goes even to Green Bay and everywhere. We go everywhere. So that's mostly contract trucking. So I don't know whether people.
But how about employees on the farm itself?
Oh yeah, there's you know there's.
Probably take 10 to 12 employees.
Yeah, like that. And then there's all the weekend help. Where the big impact labor-wise would be the spin-off of the restaurants, shops in town, and everything else that would come with when we did the soccer tournaments. But we do hire. You know, there's some. You know, it's not real high-paying jobs. There's a few. We have mostly mechanized harvesters now. But there's a lot of forklift operators. A lot of the sod that's set for stadiums is all cut at nighttime. So that would, where the road goes in there, we would always leave the whole buffer along the front, no matter what happens, it's going to stay there. And so at nighttime, the reason we harvest at nighttime is because the sod is loaded in refrigerated trucks, so it's brought up to the shop and then loaded with small forklifts into refrigerated trucks. And then it's packed up while it's cold. So we can't cut it during the daytime. So a lot of the harvesting happens at nighttime. So there's quite a few people. Yeah, there's every time you turn around, there's people running all around me. I don't know.
So when you have these soccer tournaments, do you have anything to do with those employees that are being brought onto the fields?
I don't know.
So what happens is the MSSL is the one that runs this. He has reached out numerous times with the Hamilton different clubs, Rotary clubs and so forth, trying to hire local people to do this. A lot of flaggers, a lot of partners. He has anywhere from 100 probably to 150 people working the parking lots, the referees. So he tries to get the people local. Not all of them want just a weekend, a couple weekends here and there. So he does bring some folks in from outside. But usually those outside folks are the management guys, and then they get, you know, a couple dozen here, a couple dozen there.
Yeah, there's tons of part-time work. I thought you were more interested in full-time employees, right?
Well, both. You know, for the turf
so
and then on the weekends.
Yeah, there's a lot of part-time
So
employees.
the farm itself, we have 48 employees right now. There's a reason because we're trying to keep under that 50 mark for the
Right.
federal government. But we have 48 employees, of which in the wintertime, approximately 15 are employed throughout the winter. So they start the first week of March, and they can work up to as late as Christmas week. Sometimes we actually have, if it's a mild winter, we can harvest all winter. We can keep them employed all winter. But a lot of them actually enjoy having some time off for
Sure.
vacation.
Okay.
But here I would guess probably a good 10 to 12 people would be.
Yeah, I mean, we mow our grass. We mow it almost every day. You know, so it's manicured.
The other thing that's unique about Tucko is, so we're selling a quote niche product. We do pay a lot more than what minimum wage is. Our last employee that was hired started out at $14.25. So I mean, it's not your average eggplant picker or something like that. So we do pay.
Yeah, it's mostly all skilled.
That's skilled people.
Equipment's all cheap.
Yeah.
So you gotta have a little bit of.
Yeah, and a lot of the employees have been there, you know, a lot of years. My two sons and my brother's two sons basically run the business now, and we have grandsons working at the farm. So, you know, and we're good. I mean, we would do no problem at all. We would give you guys a football practice field, or if you want to bus them down there. We do it for the Barons now. We do it for the soccer clubs in Hamilton. you come look at our facility that we have for the Barron Soccer Club, it's probably like 20 acres or so. And then, and then they just keep moving around there, and then they use it on the weekends, and so it would be, I think it would be a good partner.
Thank you, Mr. Betts.
Mr.
Appreciate
Betts,
it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Betts, I work in the Hamilton area, so I can attest to how soccer takes over Hamilton.
Yeah.
It really does take over, so he's really not pulling our leg there, and it really does a lot for the businesses in town. Restaurants, I mean, crowded. It really does a tremendous amount. How many do you actually do per year?
We do about, what, 12 there now?
We're, nine, and this year will probably be 2 extras.
Yeah, 10 to 12, but you know, we could, if you guys felt comfortable with it, we could do more. It's just a matter of, you know, if you had the good grass, they'll come from, that's what they want. They want to play on the same grass that the NFL players play on, or the professionals play on. And so they're basically playing on the same surface as that, and they have large fields, and you can see from the picture there, all you do is you take a sod field and you just put lines on it.
Yeah.
You know, and then you move it around where you're gonna go, and then the next year they come back, that's the one you're harvesting, or that's where they're parked, and then they're moved to the other one. You know, so it keeps they're just moving around, but they're playing on the same, the field, the quality of the stuff they're playing on is good. You know, and then if the Bermuda comes in, it could be, I'm not positive about the Bermuda, because it's a warm season grass, but if that does come in, it has a lot more, it's a lot tougher it could withstand a lot more clay.
That was my next question about Bermuda. So that's not really something that's ready to go.
We're planting the first Bermuda, actually the first full week of May. Will be the first planting in Hammond. So there's going to be a lot of, we actually had quite a bit of it sold already with pros that know about it already. So we're custom growing some stuff on plastic, believe it or not, and others have actually planted in the soil itself.
How do you stand nationally, competitive-wise, with that Bermuda?
Well, again, we're just getting started on that. So
Yeah.
we should be very competitive with this particular Bermuda grass. It's cold tolerant, salt tolerant, drought tolerant. It's the premier Bermuda for cooler weather areas.
I think
Basically, Bermuda grass is like the Mason-Dixon line south of that. So like Baltimore would be right about on the line. We're just on the edge of where it would be. So they have Bermuda is the top choice for fields, but our bluegrass side is, you know, is our game day bluegrass side. It would be hard. It's hard to beat.
We were ranked number 1. The soccer group that rents the farm was ranked number 1 facility in the nation for the farm in Hampton. And I think the photo you had there might be from this past weekend. If it is, it was an all-girls weekend, and it had over 320-some recruiting college coaches or recruiters from colleges recruiting kids for college. Big opportunity.
so. Just a couple more questions. Sure. So I know that you said the economy, you took a hit, and you went down to about $9 million per square foot. How do you stand with that now? How's everything
Right
back now?
We're approaching the 15 million square foot mark. And the Hamilton farm, back when the economy was doing good, we did things to push the grass faster, put more inputs into it. We put net in the field so we can harvest it in 7, 8, 9 months instead of a year and a half. Typical production is right now. We didn't have to do that for the last 8, 9 years. People don't like to have the plastic in the grass, so we'd rather not go back to that old mechanism of putting the plastics. We'd rather have it without that. So that's where part of this expansion needs to take place.
The other part, when we were 25 million feet a year, it was a lot of it was for apartment houses and housing developments and stuff. So that's a small part of our business now. We're more
Like reversed. It used to be 80-90% of our business was development, housing, and all that, and now it's like 70% of our revenue is sports stuff.
we still do a lot of golf work. I mean, that was our big, for years, that's all we did was golf courses. So I'll have a blast designing this. It'll be fun.
Yeah, don't forget the football field you talked about.
I will. Yeah, you guys,
I wrote that down.
yeah. Now you got it. You can have, I'll give you a couple.
I heard him, Bruce.
Mr. Celta?
Yeah, let me just finish up, Mayor, and give you some sense of timeline here. And it is probably pretty important as you're entertaining a few other
Thank you, Mr. Betts.
projects tonight. Time is of the essence right now because Atlantic City Electric is right now vacillating between the state, us, and two solar entities. As you see tonight, we've kind of separated ourselves from the other three competitors as to what we can provide, who we are, being a corporate and a company partner with you, where we don't think the other three entities can really be as direct to you and as accessible to you. This is a local family just up the road in Upper Township. This truly will put Millville on the map as far as growing grass for Major League Baseball, Major League NFL football, major universities, and we just think it's the perfect application to keep it agricultural. And Commissioner Pipitone duly noted that even half of it's still going to be preserved. So environmentally speaking, they win too without spending a dime out there. So we think we have the perfect application. We would love for you to put something together at some point in time fairly quickly to support one of these projects so ACE has some type of direction which the host town can gravitate on and kind of support. That's the reason why we came to you. We think you're the ones that really can make a difference in who ACE selects. And thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate all your input and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Celta. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Madam Clerk?
Okay, so the second item for presentation is Dakota Power Partners LLC presentation. I think Mr. Stephen Ebad is representing them.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Stephen Nemad. I'm an attorney. I'm a member of the firm of Nemad, Perillo, Davis, and Goldstein. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll tell you about my client, what we propose to do, and why we think it is very, very much in the public interest. I am an attorney. I've been practicing almost 45 years in the state of New Jersey. My area I specialize in is representing real estate development interests of all kinds. I've represented public and private companies all throughout the state of New Jersey and any number of real estate development initiatives of varying kinds. I've participated in many applications before planning boards, zoning boards, township governing bodies, courts of law, etc. I'd like to take a little bit of a different approach on what my client proposes to do and tell you why we believe it is so very much a win-win situation. My client is Dakota Power Partners, LLC. They're here this evening in the person of Tim Daniels, who is seated to my right. What my client proposes to do is to redevelop an existing farm. It's approximately 380 acres. Tim will tell you a little bit more about the site momentarily. It is located generally at Nab Avenue and West Main Street. It's about 380 acres. But I'd like to stress a little bit before Tim speaks about why we believe this is so very much in the public interest and why it warrants favorable consideration on a going forward basis. I think most significantly I must indicate that just a few years ago the New Jersey legislature enacted a law declaring that renewable energy facilities, such as the type my client wants to develop at this site, are what is known as inherently beneficial uses. That means that it's recognized that they serve a need, that the need is a pressing need, and that the need is something that benefits the public generally in this state. That was a very significant undertaking because the legislature enacted that law, and the current Murphy administration in Trenton has enacted a number of initiatives that are urging that we develop and redevelop solar facilities and renewable energy facilities throughout the state. What my client proposes to do, if you see favorably, is to take the site and work with you on what would be either a zoning ordinance amendment or the adoption of what is known as a redevelopment plan. Mr. Russell, as your counsel, well familiar with the various ways to achieve a rezoning of a site. This site would be a renewable energy facility. It would be approximately 50 megawatts. It would represent an investment of approximately $50 million. It would represent, furthermore, we believe tax revenue to the municipality of somewhere between $400,000 and $450,000 annually. Solar is a very quiet land use. It introduces no traffic. It introduces no smells. It introduces no noise. All the traditional hallmarks of land use intensity are not present when you develop a solar facility. I've worked on many throughout the state in my career, and increasingly more so now as this need is becoming more and more pressing. The only issue that we've ever seen that is an issue is a visual impact issue. We've been able to deal with that repeatedly through appropriate buffering, through landscaping, through the establishment of evergreens, which fully buffer the panels, which are approximately 12 to 14, 15 feet high at the very most throughout the site. There are we do not ask for farmland assessment or any type of special tax treatment. There is well-settled law in terms of how the solar facilities are taxed. We would work with this governing body and your assessor in showing you how we think tax revenue of approximately $400,000 to $450,000 annually can be very realistically achieved. Solar panels today are orders of magnitude more efficient, less costly than they were even 10 short years ago. This is something that we believe in the final analysis is very much of a win-win situation. It's being undertaken by Dakota Power Partners, who has an established track record throughout the state, not throughout the state, throughout the country, I should say, in developing utility-grade solar facilities. I'd like to introduce Tim Daniels. He can tell you a little bit more about what we propose to do in the site. And then I'd like to just sum up at the end from some very brief comments in terms of how we'd like to work with you and your staff. First and foremost, this is a policy decision. We believe public policy very much militates in favor of an initiative respectfully such as this. This is a local decision. It is a local decision pursuant to a use that, as I said, has been declared inherently beneficial, and it does not involve tree clearing of any kind. The overwhelming majority of these sites are already cleared. They're farmlands today. I'd like to introduce Tim Daniels of Dakota Power Partners. He can tell you who they are, what they've done, and what they propose to do at this location. Tim, can you get the handout?
Well, we were going to put this up here, I think.
Good, that's fine. Tim, you can come forward.
Joe, do you want to? Mayor, commissioners, thank you for giving us some of your time. So again, I'm Tim Daniels. I'm a co-founder of Dakota. Dakota is a Colorado-based company. We're about a year and a half old, although this group of partners and our investors have started multiple companies like this around the country. I've been involved in, I think, 6 of them now. And this is pretty common in our industry. We form these companies that focus on particular geographic areas. And so, for example, we have a sister company in New York that's doing utility-scale solar there. We have another one in South Carolina that's been active down in the southeast for a number of years. Oh, perfect. Space. Perfect. So Dakota's main investor, and we really say it's really a joint venture partner because we really developed with them, is MAP Energy. They're out of Palo Alto. MAP was formed about 30 years ago and is one of the biggest investors in the development of large-scale wind and solar projects in the United States. At the end of this year, they'll have north of 11,000 megawatts of projects operating, which is, to give you an idea, that's probably about 2/3 of the total amount of power that's used in New Jersey today. Here are some of the projects that just our immediate partners in Dakota have completed over the last few years. I would just mention a couple of these. The project in New York, this is the Mid-Hudson Valley, is a 1,400-acre solar farm. It was the largest project that was awarded a contract by the state of New York 2 years ago, and I was the lead developer on that. That's going through permitting right now. And then also down in South Carolina, where I think we did something similar to what we're doing in New Jersey, in that we sort of came in and started proposing larger scale projects that were more cost effective. And today all the largest projects that are operating or being built in the state were ones that we led on. So here's a map of the project area. And we have a larger one we can put up in a few minutes that has more detail. But you'll see you've got Nab Avenue goes along the western edge of the property. We have this property under control that was the former Inspira site, so at 320 acres or so. And then we also have a few more parcels down close to West Main Street. We haven't actually executed the agreement yet, but we're in advanced negotiations with the landowner. We expect to have control of that very shortly. The project is about 50 megawatts in size. That's, I think there's one other project in New Jersey that's larger than that, but that's certainly on the larger end of what's being developed in New Jersey. And that represents an investment of about $50 million. I think one thing I would mention, this project, if everything goes as planned, we could bring it online as early as 2021, although more likely it would be 2022, and conceivably, depending on some delays that might pop up related to Atlantic Electric, could even get pushed back to 2023. That's kind of typical of these large projects. They're 3-year development timelines. Here are some of the details on the design and features of the project. I would say, the two things I wanted to flag here. I'm not going to go through these details. I know it's already been a long evening. The first one is on the vegetation. And there are 2 points here. We plant native grasses that are pollinator friendly. So under these solar panels and around these solar panels, we're planting native grasses. This is good, first of all, for bees. It's also good to restore nutrients in the soil. We also, around the edge of the property, we use vegetative screening. And so Steve had mentioned this. Wherever we have some concerns about visual impacts, we'll plant, and we'll work with the town on this. It's typically a few rows of evergreens that will grow up to be about 8 feet in height and more or less block all the view of the project. The other point is the decommissioning. All the projects we've ever worked on, we've always worked out a decommissioning plan with the local town, where at some point we'll post some kind of surety bond or some sort of a guarantee that when the project stops operating, that there'll be money there if we're not, to fully decommission the project. That means remove all the equipment above ground, below ground, replant it, and return it to its original state. So here's probably the slide that will get your attention. This project, we estimate, will produce between $400,000 and $450,000 in taxes per year. If we compare that to what's currently being collected in taxes from this property, it's about $6,100. That is, property taxes partially from the reassessment of the land, which we're going to be purchasing. We own this land. We own the land in our projects typically, and then also a portion of the project is subject to property tax. So over the 30-year life of the project, that's about between 12 and 13.5 million. Now the flip side of that is that solar is virtually invisible. I mean, we say it's a good neighbor. I mean, it's basically, after we get through, let's say on average about a 9-month construction period, we do the plantings around it. Sometimes those take a year or 2 to maybe 3 to fully grow in. You will forget it's there. Solar makes no noise. It has no air emissions. There is zero impact to the groundwater. We use no fertilizer, herbicides, pesticides. I mean, this is one of the most environmentally responsible applications that you could possibly think of, and it's silent. I mean, we're not putting kids in the school. We're not creating traffic. It really puts no burden on local services, but yet you'll be getting the check once a year coming in on our property taxes. The amount of power, to give you some idea of a project this size, is about the equivalent of 8,700 homes. This was, and we can provide some more detailed sketches after the meeting, but this shows a cross-section to give you an idea of how we do this visual screening. So it's difficult to see some of these measurements, but essentially these panels, Steve had mentioned 12 to 15 feet. That's the absolute maximum. We probably would not be using technology that would take them up that high. On average, they're more like 8 to 10 feet. We typically put in plantings that within just 2 or 3 years would reach about 8 feet in height and be staggered. And so the idea is that someone from the road is not going to be able to see the panels. They're essentially going to be blocked. If you want to climb on a ladder, you can see them, but otherwise you essentially drive by it and it's going to be a wall of green. One feature of this site is it does have 2 internal roads, and you can see these in the blue, Rosen Avenue and Kaufman Avenue. Both of these serve just the internal area of the site, so we would propose to vacate those roads when we, as part of this transaction, so we can have it allows us to have a greater area to more efficiently lay out the panels. And the last item on the land stewardship, again, back to this, this is not, even a few years ago, the solar industry a lot of times was planting, single species of grass, and it sort of had more of a golf course look to it. And there's really been a movement in the industry, and we've certainly gotten on board with this. And instead of that, we work with typically we've been reaching out to some local universities to figure out what species of grass would be best suited from a wildlife perspective, and that's what we use. It's more expensive. We might be paying $1 million for the seed for a site like this rather than, let's say, $500,000. But in the long term, it's good for the soil, and it's good for the bees, which we all know are having a challenging time. So that was all I had in my formal presentation. I know I went through it pretty quickly and tried to hit on the high points. We also have Joe Grennan from Burns & McDonnell. Burns & McDonnell is one of the leading engineering firms nationally, particularly in the electricity space. They do, for example, when Atlantic City Electric decides to go build one of those really high voltage lines, about 1 out of 3 times they'll call up Burns & McDonnell and have them design it and often build it. So Burns & McDonnell has prepared a more detailed concept plan for us that we can put up if you would like, or if you have questions just on our the presentation I just went through, I'm happy to answer those.
If I may, Mayor, one last comment I'd like to make, and I think it's really important. There are a number of ways to achieve the land use controls for an undertaking such as this. It could be the subject of a conventional zoning ordinance amendment. Mr. Russell's well familiar with the process. Might be the subject of a redevelopment plan, and I'd be happy to explore that with your council. If it's the subject of a redevelopment plan, then the city keeps 95% of every tax dollar, as opposed to what you normally keep now, which is somewhere between 25 and 33.33% with the school district and the county. The county, if you do it as a area in need of redevelopment, you could keep 95 cents of every dollar. I'm well familiar with the process and how it works. But there's another aspect of this. As I said, I've gone throughout the state of New Jersey doing land use, and there aren't many locations throughout the state. There aren't many municipalities where you can undertake an initiative such as this, and it be first and foremost a local prerogative only. This is one. What I mean by that is the decision you make is the decision which will affect largely whether this gets built or not. In other municipalities, in other areas throughout the state, we're in either a Pinelands regional growth area, so they have standards that weigh in, or we're in a coastal area where the DEP weighs in, or in the Highlands area, northern New Jersey, where other state agencies have impact. The decision here is first and foremost and largely a municipal decision. If the governing body sees it that this is something that public policy supports, which we respectfully would urge it does, then your decision, once you walk down the path, is the decision which control, because you have large areas of discretion in terms of how to zone and rezone your communities. I've been through this many, many times through the years. So we think solar and renewable energy An initiative like this is something that is very, very much to be encouraged. We think we're, as Tim said, a good neighbor. They bring to the task the preeminent professionals in the field, myself excluded perhaps, but others are the preeminent professionals in the field. And they know what they're doing. They're capitalized. They can bring this to the fore. They've done it elsewhere. We would invite you to call any of the municipalities where they've undertaken some of their renewable energy facilities. You can see what their track record has been. So you judge them by their deeds, not just by our words. And if the governing body would like to move forward, I will work with your able counsel, Mr. Russell, your planner as well, who I've spoken to very preliminarily. But first and foremost, it's a decision that's a policy decision that I respectfully would urge the commissioners as the governing body would make.
Thank you,
Any
Mr.
questions,
Neiman.
we'd be happy to try to
Yeah, two questions. The first one, how much of the Holly Ridge tract would you be using actually for solar?
We're not talking about.
We're talking about Nav Avenue.
Nav Avenue.
And what is this one?
Yeah.
Nav Avenue,
49 and Nab.
West Main Street.
It's where they were going to put the hospital, Joe.
Okay. I know. And I saw the same thing on. So I was asking.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Yeah, we're just going to
I-
open the map
yeah.
and show you exactly, Commissioner, where it is.
Thank you. I heard you mention that, but then there's something on that we have up here that confused me.
No.
So the
So I
general
apologize.
question is, I mean, we won't be able to answer it precisely until we get into
Right.
final engineering, which doesn't happen for a couple of years. Generally speaking, with this site, we have wetlands, which are really, in this site, they're really not wet. It's hydric soils,
Right.
but DEP still, if they're hydric soils, we can't build on them. So you can see in this map, those green areas are what we estimate are hydric soils, and those may be considered wetlands. So we would have to avoid those. All the black is roughly where the solar panels would go. Within that area, those panels are spaced. If you were hanging over the top of it, looking straight down, the panels would cover about 40% of the area. So you have panels that are maybe 8 feet wide, 6 to 8 feet wide, and then you have a gap of, let's say, 15 feet in between. And
Wow.
it's grass underneath and grass in between.
And I'd just like to stress, if I may, Commissioners, that this is only the first step in the process. If you elect to move forward and undertake a rezoning or adoption of a redevelopment plan for the site, once that's done, we would still present an application to your planning board and Mayor, you sit on the board, and then one of the other commissioners I know
Commissioner
does.
Dalvis.
Yeah. We would still come before your planning board in the normal course. We would deal with all the usual and customary issues such as a decommissioning plan, the useful life, it's approximately 30 years on the panel, what the decommissioning plan would involve, when we would put a performance guarantee in place to have the decommissioning began and started. All those issues would be addressed. This is not the end, it's only the beginning of the process. Any other questions?
Oh, it's exciting.
Anyone else?
We think this is an appropriate.
Commissioner Cooper's thinking.
Yeah,
I have
sorry.
a
Go ahead.
So you mentioned it's a 30-year plan.
Sure.
So I'm just curious, just two questions. One, how do you evaluate the efficiency of the solar process annually? How is that done? Are they just put down and then that's it? We'll see you 30 years later. How is that looked at or evaluated?
You mean evaluated in terms of assessable value or some other?
Accessible value.
In terms of assessable value, the law is clear. There's a piece of legislation in New Jersey called the Business Retention Act. Business Retention Act says that when you have furniture, fixtures, and equipment, those are not accessible. Okay? That means the panels themselves are not accessible. But when you rezone the ground, that has the effect of increasing land value. So that we would sit down with your assessor, we would show him or her why we believe the land value is increased. We would go through the aspects of the undertaking that do represent permanent fixtures to the real estate and show which portions would be the subject of taxation and which we think would not. And the Division of Taxation has given instruction to assessors with respect to facilities like this. And with that memo in mind, we would sit down with your assessor after, when we know the zoning is in place, before we would undertake any development, to make sure that there is agreement on, to establish that what we are saying to you, Commissioner, in terms of the revenue that you would generate in taxation is accurate. On a quarterly basis, we would pay our, Tim said annually, we pay, as you know, we pay taxes quarterly. So to assure that what we are representing to you is accurate. Now, let me back up because it gets a little complicated in the land use sphere. If this is undertaken and done by virtue of a redevelopment plan, we can do a financial agreement. And in the financial agreement, we can agree with you what the tax payments are to stabilize the revenue stream over the 30-year term. Done it many, many times. So it's all how you would like to achieve the rezoning. We can't enter into a financial agreement on a conventional zoning ordinance amendment. You have to declare the area in need of redevelopment and adopt a redevelopment plan before we could do a financial agreement with the municipality.
Brock, are you familiar with that?
Yes, and in fact, the whole city was declared an area in need of rehabilitation, which is a little bit different. This may need to be an area in need of redevelopment. I'm not certain if this particular area is within the area of redevelopment, but it could be. And there could be a redevelopment plan.
I mean, we're happy to do it either way. I mean, I would say, if anything, having that certainty we prefer, because these projects our margins are very slim, and so if we can predict our taxes, if we can predict them 30 years out, great. As we try to get everything locked in, because we don't have that many costs. I mean, other than 3 or 4 people that are going to be paid to, cut the grass and replace panels that aren't working, we know almost, to like 3 or 4% accuracy, how much power we're going to produce on year 29 and 30. How much everything is going to cost, and so if we get the taxes fixed, that's great for us. But if we don't do it that way, we can do ad valorem tax, and we're fine.
Yeah, Commissioner, one of the important distinctions is that if it's taxed conventionally, which means there's no area of redevelopment, then the county and the school district get their share. If it's under an area of redevelopment, then the city would be able to retain a much higher percentage of what they pay.
Actually,
So
95.
obviously
That's the
that would be the way to go.
95% he was talking about.
Right.
It is. What I would respectfully suggest is, I don't know whose department this falls with under as a commission, but if one of you and your council and your planner would like to meet with us, we'll be happy to do that, so that these arcane-sounding but well-established principles can be discussed.
I think, Counselor, to get our economic development director and city planner on board, whenever that meeting transpires, we'll get Sam there, and she's one of the experts.
Whatever you would like us to do.
I think that would be, they're smarter than we are, or at least they're smarter than I am, okay? I don't know about the rest. I'd always like to have professional staff there.
Yeah, Mr. Neiman, I think you could reach out to me. You know how to get a hold of me, and then perhaps we can get Commissioner Udalovis, whose department it is, and our planner together and do that in an expedited fashion.
That's fine. We would look forward to it.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great,
Mayor.
thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Alrighty. Third item is a presentation by Steve Durst of Synergy LLC for a solar project.
Yeah, no, it's not ours.
Try to not throw it on the ground. Good evening, Steve Durst, Synergy LLC. As you know, we've had a few appearances before you as we try to assume some direction. in terms of solar undertaking for the city of Millville, and also an opportunity to convert your street lighting to LED. And you've heard some information from us on our approach. And I think we're zeroed in now in terms of a site. My partner, Steve Trumbo, informs me that the long dormant football fields on Cedar Street, is everybody familiar with those?
The landfill.
I'm sorry?
Landfill?
Yeah, same area.
Yeah. Is more than appropriate for us. You already have a meter there. We're concerned about the new rules that are being enabled even as we speak by the BPU. It's a little bit of a guessing game, but you already have a meter there, and given the ratification of us going ahead with an interconnect application, all we needed was a specific site. And as you know, we had looked at Wheaton, we had looked at South 10th Street. We would now like to zero in and say we would like to engage whatever procedure is appropriate to put a certain amount of land, 8 to 10 acres probably, under agreement of sale with an option on additional lands at $5,000 an acre. So I think the initial acquisition would be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range, and we would have the ability with rolling options to grow that opportunity. So those lands are the ones we're set on, and unless there's some objection, we will go ahead and make the interconnection with Atlantic City Electric, utilizing a piece of those lands once we've completed an agreement with the city for an acquisition of those lands. Mr. Russell?
Yes.
As far as the procedure goes to arrive in an agreement, what needs to happen here?
Well, because we own the land, there would need to be a contract between the city and your entity. And then it would follow all the other procedures. There could be a redevelopment plan and ultimately a redeveloper agreement and a financial agreement along with
For
that.
you and I to sit in a room and work out that agreement, do we need a resolution from?
I don't think you do. I think the next step would be a meeting, I think much like the last presentation, and it would need to involve Commissioner Udalavis, the planner, and myself.
Okay. Well, that's the short-term procedure that we'll follow. I want to mention to you, we had expressed interest, in fact, had submitted an LOI on a piece of the Wheaton tract. I met with those folks, Millville Plastics, and so that they were clear that we had no intention in interfering with their efforts. I actually gave them, at their request, a letter of intent to locate our solar installation, the initial one, on the roof of the 1401 building. I submitted that 2 weeks ago. We have had no response. It was a bona fide offer, believe me. So I just wanted to indicate that my day-to-day knowledge of their efforts and so forth are such that I believe they're heading for an agreement with terms they will have until August or September to accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish.
We're still under negotiation with them on that.
I bring that up because we're interested not in interfering in any way with our efforts, but if they don't succeed, then we would be the net under the trapeze. So bottom line is it's a great site for solar because of its immediate next door proximity to the substation. That said, all right, you've made clear to me procedurally what we need to do, so we'll arrange a meeting as quickly as we can so we can submit the interconnection for the solar for the city. And we've reached out to Mr. Finger, who appeared before you, as I did about a month ago, to coordinate with him and bring his expertise in to the efforts to convert the city's street lighting to LED. That's a very unique path that has to be traveled. I indicated at the time that the approximate $150,000 in front money that needs to be put up in that process, if we arrive at an agreement with the city to pursue that effort, we will put that front money up. I represented to you, you'll never have a dime up in any of our solar undertakings. That'll be the case with the street lighting effort as well. And,
Any questions for Mr. Durst? Thank you.
okay.
Appreciate
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Durst.
Appreciate it.
I think we're finished with presentations.
Yes, Mayor.
We'll now go to public comments on agenda items only. Anyone that has a comment on an agenda item, please step up to the mic, state your name and your concerns, and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. Seeing no one, Madam Clerk, we'll go into old business, please.
There is no old business, Mayor.
All right, discussions of commissioners. Commissioner Cooper.
None of this time, Mayor.
Commissioner Pepitone.
I just want to mention something about our city clerk, which she accomplished, and I thought it was pretty impressive. On my end, we're dealing with Oprah all the time, especially with the police department and with cameras and stuff like that, and the extent of Oprah knowledge that we're going to need to know. And our city clerk, Jeannie Hitchner, orchestrated an Oprah training seminar on May 13th here in the city of Millville, which will provide presentations from government records councils and the New Jersey League of Municipalities. The training was a joint effort between the Cumberland County Municipal Clerks Association and the city of Millville, and is encompassing all individuals in the county who handle Oprah. Attendance has been confirmed by the Cumberland County Prosecutor's Office, Millville staff and commissioners and clerks and solicitors throughout the county. Also, continuing education credits have been approved for this training. So,
Thank you.
good
Appreciate
job.
that.
God, Jeannie.
Something that we need.
That's
and
why we took her from Bridgeton, Commissioner.
She's aces.
Thank you.
That's it for now, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else? Commissioner Udalvis?
I have no comment at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Nothing at this time.
And I'll move on also. New business, please, Madam Clerk.
There is no new business, Mayor.
All right, public comment. We've now reached the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone that would like to address this commission, please go to the podium, state your name and address your concerns, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Huh, was that a psych? Joe? Yeah, I thought he was going up.
Is that Joe?
Yeah, that's Joe. He shaved. Seeing no one, I close the public portion part of this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Yeah, I gotta look
So
at the back.
moved.
Second?
Any
All in
comments?
favor?
All right, we've adjourned. Stand by for